Yes, some people get angry when they hear the truth about the different tribes that we have in Nigeria. But truth must be told, and people have to accept the truth, or the truth will be shoved under their throats so that they will swallow the truth. Truth is bitter, but we have to swallow it with pride. That is the situation. I know that without the effort of a Igbo man in Nigeria, many people will find it difficult to buy things. That one is basic. But some people will now want to antagonize it and turn that effort into another thing, saying that Igbo man bring fake something in the country. But because of an Igbo man, people were able to buy things cheaper. Because if they bring that original one, the one you call the original that is not substandard, you cannot buy it with what minimum wage? With this 30,000, I mean 50,000. So all credit goes to an Igbo man and what Igbo man is doing. Igbo man has helped this country both in government, both in economically and otherwise. What sustains country is small business. That is the sustenance, the basis of country. But well, I want you to listen to this guy. Do you believe what he's saying after listening to him? Because he said that Igbos are like the Israelites in the Middle East. The same fate that Israel is suffering, that is the same fate that Igbo man is suffering. The only difference is that the Igbos have not gotten their country yet, but Israel has their country, and the fight still continue against the Israel. But they may not have the same setting anyway, exactly the same setting. But listen to him first.
What Israel are going through in Middle East is the same thing Igbos are going through in Nigeria. Now, before I tell you the reason why I make this claim in this video, there are a lot of you that did not know me very well, and I want to clear myself to you people who don't know me very well. A lot of you have followed me for long, but I don't still understand what I stand for. Now, if I make video and you go to my comment section and comment me or send me inbox and start praising me, that one no mean say if you fuck up or your tribe fuck up or your religion fuck up, I no go call this group of people out. I will. You praising me does not mean you are my friend, or you go do something I go just overlook, or your tribe go do something I go overlook, or your religion go do something I go overlook. Nobody wey me I no go fit call out if I see say this person fuck up. Even if you dey give me money, your money wey you dey give me, which una no dey even give me, is not superior to my truth. I will always say the truth. There is a video I make calling Peter Obi out an article, how they don't mess up and all of that, and I receive a lot of attack from Igbo people. And for this reason, a lot of people went to my DM and start telling me, I tell you, Igbo people are not good. You like supporting them and all of that. Even say it on the comment section of that video, that Igbo people are bad and all of that. Now, one thing you should know is, I'm not supporting anybody. I'm not supporting Igbo. I'm not supporting Yoruba. I'm not supporting my own tribe. I'm just here to speak fact and truth. And those of you that always say Igbo people are not good and all of that, my question to you is your own tribe good? Tell me one tribe that is good in Nigeria. All tribe in Nigeria, none of them are good. All tribe in Nigeria, we are one way or the other the problem of this country. So let's stop pushing that energy of Igbos are not good people. That energy will go, you say Igbos are not good people. If we channel the energy, they come together and fight the bad and corrupt government if we don't solve the problem of this country. Now let me dive into the reason why I'm doing this video. As a Benue boy, I observe every tribe and what they're capable of. And this is what I've observed about Igbo people when I studied. Now, do you know that in Middle East, Israel are the ones suffering more, and Israel are the one people blaming more for defending themselves? Israel are more intelligent among the old people in that Middle East. Israel are the #1 intelligent people. And what Israel represent in that place is fighting for their safety and freedom. What is your world doing? People who no get sense see Israel being the problem of Middle East, whereas Israel is the victim. But because he chose to defend and fight for himself, now see Israel as problem of Middle East, instead of seeing them as a victim, people that want to defend themselves, want to fight for their own liberty and freedom. But people did not see the angle of them being the victim. But because they retaliate, they keep fighting for their freedom because they don't want to allow their enemy to consume them. People start seeing them as the problem. The same thing go to Igbo people in Nigeria. I'm not an Igbo person. But without being sentiment and bias, out of all the tribe in Nigeria, the most smartest people are Igbos. You guys cannot take that credit from them. I know they hype them. Now facts. Yes, Yoruba are more educated, but Igbos are more smart when it comes to smartness than any tribe in Nigeria. When it comes to my own tribe, Middle Belt, we are into farming, agriculture now we sabi pass. So every tribe have their role they play in Nigeria. That is why we are not one people. We are different people because we get different kind of mentality for Nigeria. Igbos are the most smartest people in Nigeria. Our government and the whole world understood this. Even British understood this. That is why they will always push propaganda against Igbo. The freedom of Igbo is the freedom of individual tribe in Nigeria. I did not understand this before. I used to insult Igbo people too when they call division. But when I sit down, now I say this is the angle this problem is coming from. The liberation of Igbo people is liberation of every other tribe in Nigeria. The British understand this. Nigerian government understand this. That is why they will pay and do everything to push propaganda against Igbo. That is why you see every tribe ganging up against Igbo people. Despite even them being the victim. Igbo are the China of Nigeria. Even before you dey hear those products of China, na Aba made with the ones here. Igbo are people that manufacture their own gun by themselves. Give Igbo man something to manufacture. He go do am. It may not look exact, but he go do am according to the money wey you give am. So stop pushing this agenda of, oh, Igbos are the problem. Every one of us are the problem. Me, I understand say the day wey Igbo go free, na that day individual tribe for Nigeria go free. British understand this. Government understand this. You as individual tribe, you no understand them. That is why you continue to see Igbo man as a problem. I not dispute this fact. Even some Igbos wey no smart, they among Igbos, where they give Igbo bad name, that one is certain. Man, I don't dey talk too much for this video. But mind you, whether you are an Igbo person, Yoruba person, Hausa, Ibibi, name me. If you fuck up, I go call you out. You are not above my calling out. The day where I go pie, now I go shut up my mouth. Anyway.
Yes, you have listened to him, and I believe that you understood what he's saying very well, and it's not complicated at all. Yes, because some people would like to twist it the other side and try to make mountain out of a mole. That is the nature of Nigeria. And that implies that we have so many nations inside Nigeria, you see. And for the government to, or for we, because we are responsible, for we to make this country work, different nations must stand on their own, or at worst, people have to confederate, at worst case. But what we have is jamming two people together, jamming heads together, causing trouble here and there. And when troubles are being caused like this, somebody is somewhere enjoying and laughing at us. That is always the scenario. Well, they said that Igbo man, some people, not everybody that are not Igbo, they said, Igbo want to force people to join them, force people that are not Igbos to join them. But I want you to listen to this. This is a Yoruba man. And I know that Kano have said something related to that the real Yoruba people are the Oyo people. Kano have been saying something like this until I came across this video. That the real Yoruba people are the Oyo people. The others are worries and the rest of them. So this man has come out, a Yoruba man, no, listen to him.
Yoruba
tribes.
This one will surprise you. There is nothing like Yoruba. Nothing. It's just an occurrence. Up to this minute I'm talking to you, if you go down to the villages, if you call an elderly Ekiti man Yoruba, he will cut your neck with cutlass because you are insulting him. We have Ijesha, we have Ekiti, we have Ondo, we have Ikale. That's the way we existed. And for anybody to be talking of will Nigeria have been like this, no.
Sure, you don't hear them. What we are doing here is to educate ourselves and people on what they don't know. Education is vital. Until we start telling ourselves the truth, until people come out to say the truth, just like the first guy I showed his clip, that is when we realize our problem, that something is wrong. From there, we can be able to fight our enemies within or outside. Yes, but majority now, they are talking about division, that is the only solution. And Britain, they say, no, this thing, they cannot form a nation by jamming different tribes together. America did it. America's own is that states stay on their own while they, have a uniform system at the federal. That is what America is doing. But states are on their own. That is the true situation. So anything outside that will not work. Well, let's listen to Ofodele. What he told.
Now, during the period of crisis leading to the declaration of war, Zik and Ojukwu were on the same side up till Aburi, and then after Aburi and the declaration of war, the early years of Biafra, Zik and Ojukwu were on the same side ideologically, okay? Then up till sometime late 1968, because up till that time, there was still negotiations going on. After declaration of Biafra and Nigeria, they were still trying to negotiate under the aegis of the OAU, heads of state, and all kinds of groups coming, trying to broker peace.
All right, so guys, a quick one. This video interview from a former member of the House of Representatives, Chudi Ofodile, the book he wrote about Biafra, telling the stories in the book. He made a whole lot of statements here that I want you guys to listen to. This interview was done some time ago, but just for those not to be here, the video is very, very educating. I want you guys to watch the video. Now this conversation, Basataro, the Biafran Supreme Leader, Dim Odumegwu Ojukwu, and then Zik, if any memory during the Aburi Accord and so many things surrounding the Biafran War. So this interview is very educating. I want you guys to watch the video. I don't want to say much. Share your thoughts. Share the video. Can do always require with fear. Enjoy the rest of the videos. I will be right back.
After declaration of Biafra and Nigeria, they were still trying to negotiate under the aegis of the OAU, heads of state, and all kinds of groups coming, trying to broker peace. Up till the end of 1968, when Ojukwu made the proclamation that Biafra's sovereignty was not negotiable. It was at that point that Zik now left and went on exile to London.
Lieutenant Colonel Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, governor of the eastern region of Nigeria, announced the declaration of the Republic of Biafra on the 30th of May, 1967. He served as the general of the Biafran People's Army until Biafra surrendered on the 12th of January, 1970. As Nigeria learns from Biafra, is there a link between Biafra and the many developmental problems of Nigeria? What needs to be done to fix Nigeria's problems? Chudi Ofodile, a lawyer, politician, and former member of Nigeria's House of Representatives, attempts to answer these and many other questions in his book titled The Politics of Biafra and the Future of Nigeria. No matter the side of the divide you are, it's a book that will likely draw out different emotions from you. Chudi Ofodile joins us to review his book and discuss the sensitive yet significant subject of Biafra. Chudi Ofodile, thanks for joining us on Channel Book Club.
Thank you very much, Kunle.
Let me read from page 15. You said the Federalists belong to the Nnamdi Azikiwe school of thought, and the Separatists belong, to the Emeka Ojukwu school of thought. Basically, you describe two schools of thought. The separatists and the federalists. So there are Igbos who believe that Nigeria should, Biafra should come out of Nigeria and stand alone, the separatists, the Nnamdi Kanus.
Yes.
And then there are Igbos who say, look, within Nigeria, Biafra can have some kind of semi-independence. So they say restructure Nigeria and let the federating units, be loose and free and all that. So the federalists, the Zik movements, the separatists, the Nnamdi Kanu school of thought, the Ojukwu primarily. Where do you stand? Are you in the Zik school or the Ojukwu school?
Well, it's an interesting situation as you just painted. It depends on the period. Okay, now during the period of crisis leading to the declaration of war, Zik and Ojukwu were on the same side up till Aburi, and then after Aburi and the declaration of war, the early years of Biafra, Zik and Ojukwu were on the same side ideologically. Okay. Then up till sometime late 1968, because up till that time there was still negotiations going on after declaration of Biafra and Nigeria. They were still trying to negotiate under the aegis of the OAU, heads of state and all kinds of groups coming trying to broker peace. Up till the end of 1968, when Ojukwu made the proclamation that Biafra's sovereignty was not negotiable. It was at that point that Zik now left and went on exile to London. So if you take the circumstances of that period, you will see that if I were in Biafra at that time, I would not have gone with Zik.
You would have gone with Ojukwu?
Yes, because of the circumstances. Okay, but now today, yes, IPOB demonstrators are being killed, unarmed demonstrators being killed, but as bad and as horrible as it is not the same thing as bombs dropping on, women and children as was taking place in 1968. So the point is that the engagement process should be different. The interesting thing is that today, Zik and Ojukwu would have been on the same side.
Will they?
Yes, because the question now should be, are we interested in creating a semi-autonomous unit within Nigeria to have federating units, maybe 6 federating units or whatever number? Or do you want a separate state?
So you reckon that if Ojukwu were alive today,
yes,
he will be saying to Nnamdi Kanu, that's not the way to go?
Ojukwu may not say so to Nnamdi Kanu for the simple reason that Ojukwu and I believe every right-thinking person should also take into consideration the fact that every citizen, every adult citizen is entitled to his or her own point of view. So that if Nnamdi Kanu believes that Biafra should be a separate country, that is a point of view.
Because that would have been consistent with what Ojukwu believed and did in the late 60s.
The circumstances, I keep referring you to the situation at the time.
Situation changed.
Yes. So when situations change, so people can shift ideologically. So that's the point, that what we're dealing with today is not so much about where Mr. A or Mr. B stands on these issues, but the right and freedom of people to agitate for whatever they want, so long as they do it within the law. So it's not a question of where do I stand. Basically, it's a matter of what rights are we entitled to as citizens of Nigeria, and how are those rights protected under the law?
Okay, now this is relevant to this conversation. You said in page 197. Let me read what you wrote here. President Buhari has his own issues with the Igbo. He becomes irritated when confronted with issues relating to Igbo marginalization or Biafra. I also have to read that immediately after that you did say that Buhari has a certain authenticity that can help to achieve genuine national reconciliation if he so desires. You then wrote after, in page 108, you said, a significant number of the Igbo diaspora do not believe that Nigeria is redeemable. They believe in Biafra and are funding the process that could lead to its realization. I believe that Nigeria is redeemable if we fight for its liberation from the clutches of agents of centralization.
Yes.
Okay, stay with me, sir. I was just curious. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you now wrote in page 200. One of the reasons Obasanjo becomes very irritated over the current Biafra agitation, aside of the Civil War victor mentality, is that he knows very well that it sprouted on his watch. Okay, so you said Buhari gets agitated when it comes to the issue of Igbo. You said Obasanjo gets agitated when it comes to the issue of Biafra. Do you believe that Buhari and Obasanjo are agents of centralization? Is that your take on those leaders, that they push for a strong central government? Agents of centralization.
Yeah, agents of centralization are basically people who, by their training, military officers who get into government and they only understand command and control, and then their own idea of Nigeria is Nigeria that is controlled from the center, from Abuja. Okay. Now, that is the problem. Obasanjo, General Obasanjo, General Buhari, General Babangida, all the generals, who have, one time or the other been in office in Nigeria, they all belong to that school of thought.
Thank you very much. It's been a nice time with you here, reviewing your book, The Politics of Biafra and the Future of Nigeria. Thank you. Congratulations on your book.
Thank you, Kunle. Thank you very much.
All right. I believe you must have gotten one or two from for the last, discussion. But having listened to him, I want you to like this video, share this video, and also drop your comments, because comments, like, and share is vital to videos that you came across that you liked. Except if you don't like that video, if you don't like what the creator is doing. That is how these things work. So click on the like, share, and comment. Yes, let's watch this. Probably if we come back, we can round up.
To the INEC.
Headquarters.
INEC headquarters. I have friends calling me from all over the world asking, Usman, what's wrong? Brand new tank to the INEC headquarters. What in God's name was the military doing there? The military is showing the world that there is a problem. And it's showing the country that it is partisan. It is the armed wing of the APC. We are all seeing it. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, what we are seeing, what the whole world is seeing, and what we are telling the world is all he wants to do is to decommission all the parties so that he will be his APC and he will be the only presented candidate in 2027 election. Let me put it on record. The APC and all the apologies and the president, one-party state and dictatorship in this country will be vigorously fought. It's not going to happen. We're not going to allow it to happen. He fought the military. He ran away. And he wants to come and be the dictator. One-party state It's never happened in Nigeria. It will not happen.
This is Niger Unfiltered on Symphony TV. My name is Olawale Oluwade, and my guest today is Professor Usman Yusuf, Professor of Hematology, Oncology, and Bone Marrow Transplantation. Prof, nice having you on the show again.
This is the second time. You will let
So
me
soon.
rest.
No, we can't let you rest. We can't let you rest.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, Prof. A lot is happening. So let's try and take them, unpack, issues as in the last couple of weeks. And let me start with the INEC chair, Professor Joash Amokuta. You've been quite critical of him, and I was a bit skeptical but then you seem to be, spot on as usual. Now, he made some tweets on his Twitter handle in 2023. In one of those tweets, a couple actually, he was responding to APC youth, national youth leader, Dayo Israel. And he said something to the effect of victory is sure. That's Professor Joash Amokuta saying victory is sure, responding to Dayo Israel. In another tweet, responding to a tweet made by this same Dayo Israel, to the fact that APC flipped an Igbo-dominated part of Lagos. They flipped it and won. And then he made some disparaging comments about Igbo people. And Professor Amokuta responded with Ashiwaju, just one word, Ashiwaju. Now, in all of this, the big issue, that will not be a problem to have an opinion, but the big issue is that after I became INEC chair and these tweets were identified and called out, suddenly the tweets were erased, they were deleted. Secondly, the handle, the name was changed to a new name and then made, identified as a parody, account, which showed an intent. So the question, Prof, I just have to give that brief background. So INEC is meant to protect democracy, conduct free and fair election, but importantly, be an impartial arbiter, because it's a contest. So my question is simple. What's your opinion about this that I just described?
Okay, you said it. Everybody has a right to choose or support whoever he wants to do that. But I've said it on this medium and several others from the outset, that anyone nominated or occupying the chair of an independent should not come with such controversies at all. He should be seen to be independent and above board. And you saw that even with Jega, even with the last person that people were vilifying, Professor Yakubu, that has now, if I was him, I would not have accepted ambassadorship. It just shows you they are just rewarding you for a job well done. And my advice to Amopitan and whoever is his friend, you've earned the position of a professor. You earned SAN. Don't let these politicians rubbish all of that, because that's exactly what they are doing. They're just rubbishing whatever. Nobody gave it to you. You earned all of these things, and you are allowing for what? For what? Honor means something. We were brought up. So you are doing all of this for what? So, and I've said it, I've never been shy from the outset, from his writings, 80 pages. And we're now translating that into Hausa. You need to read it. I don't know if you read it. You need to read it. For me, a Muslim, a Fulani, it really took a lot of patience to read it. This is a man who has come with a bias, a hatred against a certain group of people. How can they expect fairness and justice from a person occupying that chair? And I've said it repeatedly, never been shy. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu went shopping for a person like that. So my advice to Amopitan is that he should take the path of honor and just recuse himself and resign. Failing that, he should be fired because nobody has confidence in him. Not the Muslim clerics, not Muslims in the north, not Fulanis, not Kanuris, not opposition politicians. So who is he working for? Ashwaji? No, you're not working for Ashwaji. You're working for the integrity of the election in Nigeria. And do the honorable thing, Professor Pitan, and just recuse yourself and disappear. Because so far, your professorship and your SAN, you have taken that into the gutter. For what? For politicians? They will just use you, dump you, and so my advice to him. But this election will not be accepted if it is so pretended by the current INEC chairman. End of story. We've all said that. Everybody's saying that, and we're seeing that. We're seeing what he wrote. Be careful what you write. Our lecturers used to tell us that it doesn't disappear, especially with email and all that. It never, you cannot delete that. It comes. I don't know why he's so blah, 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 and writes a lot. It will bite you. And it's 80-page brief. If you look at it, I know it's very ignorant, very venomous, very insensitive. Sitting from his office in Jos, writing all of this rubbish. We called him out, and Muslim clerics in the north have said it long before anybody did. We are not going to expect fairness from a person like this. Now politicians are saying, now they're digging his past. My question, and I've said it here while I was here, what was the DSS doing? They must have screened him. So they let him through because the president wanted him. It's dereliction of duty by the DSS if they truly screened him. And if they screened him and told the president there are issues, Mr. President, this, and that, and he accepted that, I said it before. Now we know the president is looking for the person and he's gotten him. We are not going to accept Joash Amopitan as the INEC chairman coming this election, conducting this election. So take the path of honor. You're a professor. You're an SAN. You're not a hungry person. You don't need this INEC job, for goodness sake. You have a name, the family name, for goodness sake. It means something. Where I come from, honor and integrity means something. You're a lawyer, a noble profession. Recuse yourself from this chair, please. This is my advice to him.
Before we even go to the next question I have, written down, you just said something that caught my attention. You said he doesn't need his job. He's not a hungry man. I beg to differ because the budget of INEC that was sent to the National Assembly, if my memory serves me right, it's about 895 billion naira. Prof, isn't that enough to make any man lose his or her head?
So do people go there for the money? I mean, do people go accept jobs because there's money? INEC chairman before that. I know Professor Jega. I know him, I know his family, I know the integrity of his family, I know where he comes from. I know his person. Don't go there because of the money. Family, name, how you were brought up, who you're... We were brought up in a way that crass accumulation of ill-gotten wealth has never been what wakes us up in the morning. That's why I fought in the NHIS. At that time I was in control of real money, not this paper money that President Tinubu has made the Naira. Real money, more money than most of these governors. And I could have, but that's not the way we were brought up. That's not what wakes me up in the morning. Crass accumulation of ill-gotten wealth. So if Amopitan is there because he sees the money, it's not going to last. All this money, we've seen governors, we've seen ministers, we've seen this. You look at them today. God will not bless this kind of blood money. Will not. So take a path of honor, Professor Amopitan, and recuse yourself. You don't need to go back to the university, open your own practice. You're already known. You're an SAN.
And let me put it right there, because before people listening will think I was saying maybe he will steal money. I said that he has that huge budget because ability to dispense favors, and all of that. And there may be some of the people he has empowered will say, oh, come and be governor of Kogi State in future. But okay, let's go to the next question, Prof. By deleting those tweets, victory is sure. One, and then another one, Ashiwaju, showing obvious preference for a candidate in an electoral contest. My comment earlier was that it's not a crime to have a preference in an election. After all, we're adults, we're citizens, we're expected to vote. But I would have expected the part of honor to be, that was my views there, or those were my views there. But now, in spite of all of this, I found myself on this chair. So going forward, I would behave as expected, to be impartial. But going ahead to surreptitiously delete those tweets, why are you deleting them? Why are you changing the name? Why are you saying it's a parody account? Prof.
Right, and to be honest, I saw someone from one of the media outlets interview him. I think you need to sit down with him and ask him too. And he should not be shy. He needs to open up and talk to people. That is the only way. You see officials in this country, from the president to the ministers to the generals, everybody hiding, not talking too. You need to, just like he sat down in his office, you honestly need to ask to sit down with him. Maybe he didn't realize that. Maybe it wasn't him that did all the deleting. Maybe it was his this. He needs to talk to the nation, address that. But failing that, he's already a bruised INEC chairman, and the honorable thing to do is honestly to go. And we are telling the international community, they're hearing, they're listening to us, that we are not going to accept an election superintended and conducted by the current INEC chairman, because we do not believe it's going to be fair, it's going to be just, it's going to be independent. So if anything happens after that, we've already raised the alarm from here. And why would the president, and I said it before, for goodness sake, Mr. President, why are you hanging on to a person that's going to cause you so much trouble? Why? If you're looking for Yoruba man, if you're looking for a professor, if you're looking for SAN, if you're looking for Christian from Kogi, there are 1,000,001 people that you could go look for. And just forget this controversy. We don't need that, to be honest. Nigeria has a lot more problems than this. You cannot hang on to any one person. Nigeria is bigger than any one person, for goodness sake. And the longer you hang on to him, the more entrenched, the stronger we are in our opposition to his being there, and the more we tell the world that we are not going to accept any election conducted by the current INEC chairman. Mr. President, hear it loud and clearly. Our American partners, our European partners, our world partners need to hear that an election is coming with an INEC chairman that we do not believe is going to be fair and just. End of story. We are saying it now in a very calm, in a very civil way to the president, for him to know. If he's not listening to us, people around him need to tell him. The closer it gets to election, the more difficult it becomes, and the more the tension, and the more the suspicion. So why are you hanging on to him? What does he have that a lot of people in Kogi cannot have? So, Mr. President, let's move on. Get us somebody who we can all trust. End of story. That's all we're asking. And another thing, and I reached out to some of our military leaders in the past. Did you see tanks deployed to the INEC?
Headquarters.
INEC headquarters. I have friends calling me from all over the world asking, Usman, what's wrong? Brand new tank to the INEC headquarters. What in God's name was the military doing there? The military is showing the world that there is a problem. And it's showing the country that it is partisan. It is the armed wing of the APC. The military has no role in it. It was bad optics, And I'm glad they pulled the tank out. I don't know, they're not even thinking. If you want to send anybody there, send the police. The military should not be seen anywhere near our politics. Should be away. So please, 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 don't ever do that again. Military, do not deploy any soldier or any tank. That brand new tank, don't we need it in Benishek? Don't we need it in Konduga, Ngoshe, in the northeast? The brand new tank, you're deploying it to the INEC. What's wrong with our military these days? The military leadership, they are not politically savvy, or somebody is not telling them the truth. Don't get involved in this messy politics because you'll be burnt. Internationally, they're looking at you and saying, why are you here? And nationally, people are saying, you're taking sides already? You're the armed wing of the APC? I'm glad they pulled it out, and I'm telling them, I'm calling on our military, don't get involved. Soldiers are not happy in the war front already. And you have tanks, brand new tanks at INET headquarters? Don't do that again, please.
Now, on April Fool's Day, you know, he came up with the news that he had derecognized ADC leadership of the chairman, David Mark, and National Secretary, Rauf Aregbesola, on the pretext that there's a factional chairman somewhere who's a certain Nafiu Gombe, who claimed he didn't resign, that the so-called letter purportedly written by him to resign was a forgery. Now, he had gone to the Federal High Court, and he didn't get the judgment or something, and then David Mark went to the appeal court, and appeal court said, no, we can't get involved. Let him exhaust the case at the Federal High Court, but you guys return to status quo ante bellum. Based on that, INEC chairman said, oh, we got letters from wherever. And I was thinking, when I was listening to him, that, do you take decisions based on letters or judicial pronouncements? If the court said, let the trial court deal with the substantive matter, meantime, parties maintain status quo ante bellum. And then Professor Josh, the chagrin for me was that it interpreted status quo ante bellum to mean, you know, decapitate the entire management of the political party, ADC. Before I even go further, how did this news come to you?
Maybe he's acting there as a lawyer, as an SAN. Which I'm serious, which he shouldn't be. He shouldn't be the one doing the interpretation. I'm not a lawyer. But I'm glad, I understand the Supreme Court is hearing it. For goodness sake, they should stop this rascality going around. Nigeria is on a tender hook. Whatever we need to do, the executive, the judiciary, us talking, everybody, the media, we need to. People are not happy in this country. People are dying of hunger. Our soldiers are dying. Our officers are dying. They are watching us. They are out there taking bullets. They are watching us in Abuja talking in air-conditioned space. Instead of sorting things out so that we take care of them to do well, we send them there. We are here arguing about things that shouldn't be argued. The INEC chairman should know his place and leave the court to do their things. And I'm glad the Supreme Court will make the judgment. And I'm calling on the Supreme Court too, our judiciary. You are part of this country. You don't want things to go up in flames just because of somebody's ambitions or somebody's I must be there, da. No. Take a bow. You've done your part. You'll forever be seen as an INEC chairman. We are all seeing it. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, what we are seeing, what the whole world is seeing, and what we are telling the world is all he wants to do is to decommission all the parties so that he will be his APC and he will be the only presented candidate in 2027 election, one-party state. There are 30 whatever governors. They've destroyed the PDP. They've destroyed Labour Party. And now this, the new bride in the bloc, ADC, they're causing trouble in ADC. I heard even in Adamawa, some kids came out and gave a press conference and said they've suspended Atiku Abubakar and Babachir Lawal, who is the chairman of the Northeast.
Yes.
So they just want to cause trouble all over. So that by 2027, he is the only candidate. Let me put it on record. The ADs, the APC, and all the apologists and the president, one-party state and dictatorship in this country will be vigorously fought. It's not going to happen. We're not going to allow it happen. He fought the military. He ran away. And he wants to come and be the dictator. One-party state has never happened in Nigeria. It will not happen. We will fight. So if you don't want to cause trouble in this country, Mr. President, allow the space for opposition to present their wares to the people and let people accept. You are breeding trouble. We've said it. And the security services, you better be careful. Stay out of our politics. Don't send your tanks on the street to go and shoot people when people come out. Because there is no security, no police, no military that can quell the anger of an angry people. We've seen it. Why don't we learn lessons from the past? Look at what happened in Nepal. Look at Bangladesh. For goodness sake, we're not learning. We're going through that same. Instead of the leadership, their security service, the DSS, the NSA, and the military telling the president, we are heading to trouble. You better pull back. We shouldn't allow that. And we do not see how our military or our security services will allow this. Mr. President, they're not telling you the truth. One-party state is a no-no in Nigeria. And this repression of opposition will be vigorously opposed. Look at what they are doing to Nasser El-Rufai. They're bouncing him from one court to the other. They want to decommission him so that he is not active till 2027. They release him. They're very nervous. We are not going to allow that, allow the space just like your turn was allowed. President Muhammadu Buhari allowed you to go through all of whatever you did. Whatever you did, and you became president. Thanks to Nasser El-Rufai and 62% of the votes from Muslim North. They voted you. And now you don't want people to have free expression? You're bringing an INEC chairman that you know is bruised. You are destroying all parties. You are preventing this party from conducting its convention. You are amassing money. I was reading the 2023 budget, the 2024 budget, and the 2025 budget, all these budgets, none of them was implemented.
The capital component of them.
Yeah, none of them. They only give the ministries money for salaries. So I was asking the senator, why don't you do, what do you see, why don't you raise your voices when you go for oversight? He says this 10th assembly, there's no oversight. What are we going to oversight? To go and oversight that, have you been paid your allowances or salaries? No capital project, nothing. All this money has been accumulated to fight election. 3 years. 3 years. For goodness sake. Money meant to work for people. Ministries, go and ask ministers. Go and ask the minister. No minister, they just leave them with this SUVs and sirens. Nothing. Many have to, out of their pocket, to pay for their office stuff. They've been accumulating money, doing budgets. 2023 when he came in, 2024, 2025, none of these budgets have been, but they've been written. We bought this, we bought this tank, and the money is waiting to fight elections.
Let's go to insecurity, because that's another burning issue. In the last few days, I've been so downcast. I've been so downcast at the caliber. I mean, any life lost reduces me, reduces you as a community of people. Any life. But then when you begin to lose the caliber of men, our military, it's losing of late. Brigadier General, commanding officer, colonels, lieutenant colonels, and the works. In very strange and very inexplicable circumstance, it begins to call for serious worry. Prof, you and I have had this conversation over and over. What's going on? I need to ask you again. What the since that? What's going on?
Yeah, and it's a correct question that we have all been asking. What is happening? We're not getting any answers from those who should give us answers and make us, those who we elected, or those who are appointed by those we elected to supervise our security, to come and talk to us. Only in Nigeria did you lose 2 generals, the colonel, many 4 or 5 lieutenant colonels, a major. Nobody's talking to us. Yet only a sterile press statement from the DHQ where they pay the gallant price. Then they deserve a lot more than that press statement. The one that died in Kukawa was buried. Not a single service chief was there. Not the governor of the state was there. And the family was given 5 million by the state governor. And that's it. This, officers. For you, I was talking to my classmates that went into the ND at that time. They were course 21. So I was asking some of them, how long does it take you from when you go into the NDA, when you become commissioned, to rise into the rank of brigadier general? It's over 20 years, 25 years. And then all of a sudden, a son of Satan just come and kill him. These are our children. They are fathers. They leave orphans. They leave widows. Many of them leave parents. They leave aunts and nieces. They leave communities. Then that's it. That's how we pay them. We are not asking the right questions. And the people that should answer these questions for us, they're literally in hiding. We're not hearing anything from our president and commander-in-chief. We're not. We've not had anything from our Minister of Defense. As far as I know, he is the first, if not the only 4-star general that occupied the office of the Minister of Defense. All the others I knew were 3-star generals, a 4-star general. You take charge and be talking to us. We haven't had anything about the next 3-star general, the CDS. We haven't had anything. The NSA is gone missing. Nobody is talking to us. You talk to us, the soldiers in the trenches hear you, and they are reassured too. And I was asking, a brigade commander is not a small position. I understand you have brigade, you have 3 battalions. And each battalion is about 750 soldiers with officers, with I don't know how many tanks, how many whatever. The brigade commander is way back there directing that. The battalion commanders are there reporting to him. 3 battalions. How come they penetrate? The sons of Satan penetrated this 3 battalion and came.
To kill the brigadier general.
What we're hearing is, in the heat of battle, when he was trying to get into an MRAP, it wouldn't start. What happened? These are questions that must be asked and must be answered by the military leadership, by our political leadership. This cannot continue. We have lost 5, 6, 7 battalion commanders and 2 brigadier generals. The space of 1 month, 2 months. No military will be quiet, only Nigerian military. And nobody is telling us how many soldiers have been killed. They will say, oh, 10. Oh, Reuters will say 20. Oh, this. So they are not worthy of being mentioned. You go to the United States, the other day I saw the President Trump, his vice president, and the minister, the Secretary of War at the airport to receive the caskets of 3 fallen American soldiers. The other ranks. The president was there, the vice president was there, and the Minister of Defense was there. Here, they get buried all across. We don't know them. We don't know how many. Who would want to send his child to be a soldier? They went in on their own accord. This is a volunteer military to fight and protect all of us. We're not treating them well. An officer told me in the military, there are three things: resource, training, and leadership. Clearly, they don't have resources there, either physical equipment or intelligence.
Let me ask you on that resource, the first one, resource. You took it right out of my mouth. The Brigadier General that died, Benishek, I think, he wanted to start the APC, he wouldn't start. Some accounts states it malfunctioned. Some say it didn't have diesel.
Yes, viewers, I thank you sincerely for coming around to have a view of this video. Well, I am still Chinedu until I come your way next time.